All right, so we're gonna do this way. Richie's a little bit late. We had planned on doing a Phillies episode based on how they've really turned the corner since Zombie Joe got fired, and you know, 9 straight wins. The offense sets on fire. Strangely enough, they put the kids in, and the kids start hitting. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Um, it's been kind of a crazy. It was a crazy 9 games, and it was 8 games without him at the helm. Um, and they ended up losing today in spectacular fashion. What was it, 13-1?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
13-1. I think Garrett Stubbs came in and pitched.
Did he really?
Yeah.
So, which we'll get to Garrett Stubbs because he plays a big part in the future of this team. If I run with my hot take, which we discussed and I didn't really get too far into, but what do you got on the Phils, man?
I'm loving it. You called this about a month ago. Joe needed to go, and when I say Joe Girardi, he just was not doing anything with his lineup, and I certainly, you know, I probably would have given him maybe a bit more leash than maybe you had. But the Phillies obviously did that, and they were doing horrible. And so last 10 games, they are 9-1, 8-1 under new head coach he was the bench coach, wasn't he? Rob Thompson.
Yeah, he coached um, with Girardi up in New York, and Joe lured him down here to Philly, and lo and behold, he drafted his own replacement.
Right. Yeah. Which is funny. What Joe Girardi is a very well decorated manager. I don't have any really ill will toward him. I just don't know that I think he's just in a different spot right now. This I don't know. I don't know that he sees um, upper tier, and I say upper tier meaning like New York, a Philly, a high upper market team to manage anymore. If he does manage again, I could see it in a mid or small mid market team. Look, he, like I said, highly decorated, but this was he needed out. And yeah, look, you mentioned this already. They're playing the kids. Man, Bryson Stott, geez, look at him. My
Right.
goodness, just firing on all cylinders. And yeah, take today's game out of it. Look, every time, even a great team gets blown out every once in a while.
Right, it happens. It's inevitable that it eventually along the line is going to happen.
But the game that was the turning point for me was the last Sunday game. And they were down 6-2 in the bottom of the eighth, 3-2, 2 outs. Harper ties it up with a grand slam. They give up a run in the top of the ninth, and they're playing the Angels. Again, they're down 7-6, 3-2 count, 2 outs, bottom of the ninth. Bryson Stott 3-run home run to win the game. That's a come from behind. It's a huge part of that streak there for me because you have a big come from behind. You're down 4 runs late in the game with 2 outs in the eighth inning, and you end up winning the game. So it just tells me the team does have moxie, and it's coming from the kids. So I don't know. What do you have on these guys now? Now that we're 30-30.
I mean, look, do I think we're going to win the World Series? No. Stranger things have happened. I'm not going to say we're not, we don't stand a chance, but we had to see what the kids had. We had to see a different voice because honestly, this lineup, this roster is too well put together to have produced the way that it or lack of production that it had up to this point. I mean, Nick Castellanos is still, you know, dragging a little bit, but by and large, it's showing that if they can get competent like fielding and defense from their players, and if they can get competent pitching, their offense can win them an awful lot of games.
Yes, they can.
And obviously today being the aberration with the 1 run game.
Right.
But, they were never really in it. I mean, it took Ranger, 40 some pitches to get out of the first inning.
Yeah, and look, he's going to be never more than a 5 starter for me anyway.
Right.
He should be a long reliever. In my opinion, spot start, long relief guy. I hate that he's in the rotation it's great that he's, getting a shot to be in there, but, and I don't know who you'd swap him out with at this point, but I think that's where he ultimately falls. I think he ends up being a spot starter, long relief guy, kind of in the guise of like a Kyle Kendrick. Um, you know,
Yeah,
maybe, and that's and maybe that's underselling Kendrick. 'Cause I can remember him having some great starts, and he was a very competent starter there, but he was always a back end of the rotation guy. So that's kind of what my feeling is on that. Look, bullpen, still question marks there. Brad Hand the other night just looked like garbage. Um, just not good. They ended up winning the game, but they were up like 6-0 or 6-1, and then he basically gives up 4 runs,
yeah,
and it's 6-5, and real late in the game. And look, I don't know. I'm still not sold on some of these end of the game guys. I don't like the fact that Knable's still closing,
right.
but who knows?
And especially with the coming up with a sore shoulder last night. Um, doubtful that he would have been available today if he was needed. Obviously, luckily he wasn't needed. But there's just the back end of the whole bull. I'm going to say the whole bullpen is just a liability at this point. You've got some pieces that can work, but I feel like at this point they're getting so overused that it's just the whole thing is an issue at this point.
yeah,
Which,
yeah, and I think we knew that. I mean, you and I talked about this in a preseason preview of this.
yeah,
Um, you know, we knew that Familia and Hand and some of these other guys, yeah, they're great to pick up here for pieces, but that was not ever going to be enough. Um, I don't know who was going to be enough. Obviously, they decided to dump all their eggs into the offensive part of it.
right, right,
Let's do Castellanos, Schwarber, and I want to talk on Schwarber for a minute. It was pretty disappointing for me for the first 55 games or so, hitting around 200. He's finally starting to click a bit, but that guy's much more capable of a 200 hitter. In fact, let me look him up real quick, because that was one that I was like just really confused on as to why he was at the way he was.
right.
I know, granted, he's a little just under what his career is, um, but I don't know. It just doesn't. It just seems to me like he's like underperforming a little bit for me.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I agree. I think that once they get him and Castellanos firing on all cylinders, once they hammer out the center field position, um, there's a lot that can still improve on this offense. And by improving on offense and making it more solid, you're hopefully going to improve your defense. And it doesn't hurt. I mean, it doesn't help that you've got Harper, who, listen, Harper's killing it. He's absolutely raking at the plate, but he was signed to be your right fielder, not your DH.
right.
That's what Schwarber and Castellanos were supposed to do. So,
Yeah, yeah, and Harper's and he's murdering it right now, basically being hurt too.
right.
That's the insane thing. He's currently, to my understanding, leads the league in slugging percentage, OPS, and total bases. So
Yeah.
it's wild.
Yeah. He's playing outstanding baseball right now. And, it's just a shame that he can't play the field. But I want to talk about a position, and this is something that I had kind of, like I said, I talked to you about off the air, kind of a little hot take, so to speak, maybe a lukewarm take, but probably more of a hot take. So it's widely known we have somebody that's considered to be one of, if not the best catchers in baseball, in JT Realmuto.
Hmm.
Right. We also have a very capable backup in the man you named earlier, Garrett Stubbs. And I'm not saying he's the everyday answer, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe we don't need to trade Realmuto to snag some arms. and be they bullpen arms or starting rotation pieces if we can get them. And the reason I say this is we've got a young man down in Double A with Reading by the name of Logan O'Hop. And have you taken a look at his stats recently?
Stat wise, I'm unfamiliar with, but I know the name because it comes up in my readings a lot. I really don't pay attention to minor league stats a ton, but I do follow like some of the prospects. So yeah, what's he been doing?
So in 174 at bats, he's hitting 287, 13 home runs, 37 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, and a 977 OPS.
Wow. Yeah, that's yeah.
And so if we look at it, let's look at do you remember when Ryan Howard was coming up, right?
Mhm.
And Ryan Howard, first baseman. Who did we have at first base?
Oh, Tommy.
Right. And Tommy blocked Howard from coming up because, for a little bit. And not saying that Tommy wasn't, shouldn't have been there, but if we're really looking at the future, I realize we've got this dude that he's a cornerstone, superstar, legitimate superstar at first base in Jim Tomey.
Mhm.
But you've got this kid coming up through your minors that's just destroying it and could be, the next big thing. And we ended up losing years of him in the major leagues because Jim Tomey was blocking his path.
Right.
So now Logan O'Hop is only 22 at this point. Maybe it's still a little too early to bring him up, but I'm of the mindset where, all right, so what do we do with Real Muto and Hop? Oh no, Hop. Do we put O'Hop, try him out at first base and see if he can play first base? Do we put Real Muto at first base and let him hit there? I mean, the problem there is he's not getting you the power numbers that your typical high price first baseman would be making. So his contract doesn't really match up with if he moves to first base. You can't put him at DH because you've got all these other guys that are, you've got Bryce playing. Can you put Realmuto in the outfield? Again, you're paying a premium price for a player that's not hitting premium.
Yeah, his AAV is like 25 million plus,
Right,
which was the highest ever for a catcher.
right,
And position wise, he's basically gonna catch and play a little first base and DH. And that's about
right.
it.
So it's not like you can't really move him around the field. So what about O'Hop? How do you get him in? Again, you're not going to be getting the production out of him to put him at one of the corners. You've already got other people at the corners with Reese Hoskins and Alec Boehm. You're not putting him in the outfield. So what are you doing here? You've got this logjam. So are you either A, trading O'Hop and banking on um, JT Realmuto, who is aging. I mean, I'm not saying he's old. He's still much younger than us.
Yeah, it's 31.
Yeah. So, but he's getting up there for a catcher. So you've got his immediate replacement right there. So
Yeah,
do you roll the dice and maybe trade him and try and bring in some pieces and then bring O'Hop up?
yeah. I just don't know if they do. They're gonna have to eat money on that.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
you know, um, he's still producing. He is still within his, um, let's say what are we? A little over a third of the way through the season. As far as his offensive war goes, we'll say that he is basically at his roughly around his career average in that, maybe a tick under, but he's not too far off track. He's not had like he's basically had a season that would be akin to his second year in the league, where he hit 259 with 10 homers, over 441 at bats. Right now he is at 238 with 3 homers. So, you know what I mean? So if you carry that out times by three, he kind of falls in the same line. I don't know though that, you know, here my thing is I don't know how he maintains this season. Does he stay the same clip? Does he get hot? Does he, what happens with him?
Right.
My thing is, I certainly don't disagree. I just don't know where he goes, who takes some of that contract, because they're going to obviously have to eat money on it. And what do you get in return? The one thing I do go back on, it was funny. I looked up the original trade for him back several years ago, and the two big pieces on that were Sixto Sanchez and Jorge Alfaro. Sixto Sanchez hasn't pitched in the major since 2020 due to injury, and Jorge Alfaro is now in San Diego.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me, like what could possibly happen here with him. I just don't know. Is it mid-season this year, or are we talking mid-season next year, or in the off season? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Garrett Stubbs playing the way he is, because he's been playing relatively well. I was pleasantly surprised, but I feel like between him and Ohop, I don't know that you're getting that much of a drop off. Obviously the quality of the game being called is going to be a little different because Realmuto, that's part of his game, is that he can command a pitching staff, and you're going to lose that. You just are. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because he's got the experience and he's been there and done that. But who knows if Ohop might, he doesn't have the experience, but maybe he's got more instincts as far as calling the game. You never know.
Be. And speaking of calling the game,
there he is.
We've been joined by our third member.
Yes.
This is the first time we're actually recording and then having someone hop in, which worked out perfectly because we just finished up a conversation about the Phillies. You got any takes on the current status of the Philadelphia Phillies, Rich?
I hope they win the Super Bowl.